They're crooked. The way that I have my monitor set up, it is kind of crooked. It's like the vertical setup. This is what I keep my chat and OBS on. So it kind of works. You know what I mean? I'll put some more work into it. It's not ready yet. Or maybe I won't. I don't know. Maybe it's better just to do full screen. And it's not like I'm going to probably be using face cam anytime soon. Maybe a little bit someday, but normally that's what another part of the screen I'm guessing would be designated to for the reaction. But anyways, this is a channel I've been watching for years. We used to watch it on Rabbit, like as a community. And then we did some like movie nights in the Discord. And now I'm bringing them to you here. So first, which is a good one to start on. Which is a good one to start on. What do you guys think? Pizza delivery stories? Halloween? Craigslist? Rabbit, that's old. But Rabbit's not that old. These are all 5 years old, though. I miss Rabbit. Pizza delivery stories just sounds like fucking porn. More than that. Promise. I actually had a calzone tonight. It was wonderful. I'm looking for the Pizza Witch story. Oh man, I love this song. True pizza delivery. This isn't the one I'm thinking of, but we'll watch it. Yeah, it was a calzone, and then they have this like garlic bread that they just throw a lot of fucking mozzarella onto. I had it a few weeks ago from this one place, and it was amazing. I got it tonight. Wasn't as good, but it was still good. That's what I hate about mom and pop places sometimes, the inconsistency. Like, I swear, I got this cheese bread there a few weeks ago, and it was bomb. It was better than the pizza. And then I got it tonight, and it was just like, it was all right. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't as good. Inconsistencies. But I guess that's anything. As it is. All right, let's watch some stuff. Again, thanks for coming by, everybody. I appreciate it. We are trying something a little bit different with the YouTube video thing, but sometimes just not in the mood to play games, but I also want to stream. So, kind of fills that niche. Niche? I think that's the word. All right, we're starting with the pizza delivery story. Let's do it. True pizza delivery. Horror Stories 3. Why would it be true pizza delivery?
I was out doing a delivery one late night.
These are all Mr. Nightmare. The animator uses Mr. Nightmare's animation or narrations.
It was a 20-minute drive, which isn't too crazy out where I live.
That's pretty quiet.
Plus, they ordered 4 large pies, so I figured it was a party.
It was a
and I
volume.
would get a much bigger tip. Navigating the dirt roads at night was always annoying, though.
The channel is called Llama
I pulled
Arts.
up to the given address.
Yeah, look at the car.
It was some old,
it looks like that Hot Wheels
building,
computer
in the middle of a forest clearing.
I love it.
There were no cars parked anywhere or any lights on. I put my car in
It looks like it's about to do like a fucking one of those like loop-to-loop things.
At least 3 times to make sure I typed it in right, but that checked out. I could tell he was in a really bitchy mood.
Get that Hot
told me to
Wheels
at least
drip.
knock on the door and check it out.
I love this channel, honestly. This is like a comfort to me.
But I was afraid of what he
These
would do if I
videos.
brought back 4. I was
This
insane.
this is the very beginning.
Got out anyway.
They haven't
and
moved on to
forced
Family
myself
Guy
to the
yet.
front
They're in
door of the
anime
building.
stage still in this
There
point.
was no doorbell, so I just knocked.
This is
really
anime
hard.
style.
I heard nothing.
This
and
is
didn't
their
really expect to hear
their
anything.
origin.
I was extremely disappointed.
Called Llama
Not
Arts.
because nobody answered the door.
It's the channel name.
Because I was realizing that.
But the
it was all a
narrator
waste
is
of time
Mr.
and
Nightmare.
gas. I knocked one more time out of desperation.
Who was a pretty famous like creepypasta
And then
scary
I began
story
to hear
reader
some kind of
on
rustling
YouTube.
noises from inside of the building.
Pretty big, rather.
I knocked again and yelled that I was the pizza guy. There was
I'm the
silence
pizza
now.
guy.
I felt a bit more uncomfortable now than before. But before I could turn around, I noticed something at the window. There was someone looking through the window. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. All I noticed were their eyes.
Oh my
Their
god.
eyes were open wider than I knew possible, staring intently at me. I was disturbed enough by
a
this
lot of
and
pizza.
dropped the pizzas and ran back to my car. The shitty thing wouldn't start until turning the key for the third time.
I got back to my
I
Hot
drove
Wheels
off the
car.
grass and back onto the dirt road. But I felt
It
the
wouldn't
car
get on the
rocking
track,
about,
though.
shaking and bumping.
I love that. That
Something
looks
wasn't
cool.
right. I didn't make it far from the building.
It reminds
before
me
I
of that,
started hearing a sharp
movie
scraping sound
studios
coming from outside.
Production
There
reel.
was so much resistance that I couldn't even drive. The car came
The guy
to
that
a
turns
stop.
into Mothman.
I got out of the car to check what the hell was wrong. A chill ran up my spine as I began to feel like my heart was constantly skipping beats. My tires had been slashed and had completely fallen off the rim. Not just the front
Sick
though.
decal though.
All 4 tires were slashed. I realized somebody did this when I was knocking on the door to that building. Instead of running, I got back in the car and locked the doors.
Yeah, you could like do like
So
big
close to
jumps with that
building, I could
flame
practically
decal.
see it from where I was if it weren't for the trees blocking the view. I dialed 911 and explained everything to the operator. She told me the cops would be over as soon as possible and that I need to stay hidden. I asked her if it was advisable to stay in the car or run, and she told me it would be best to stay in the car with the door locked. She asked me to stay on the line with her until the cops arrived. My whole body was shaking. In all directions, there was nothing but dark, seemingly endless forest. I knew it would take forever for the cops to get there. I was not comfortable with sitting in that car so close to whoever did this.
Yeah, this is why I'd never want to deliver
The next
pizza.
part, though, is what utterly destroyed me.
Like this
It
isn't
still
even the
shakes
worst
me
of
to
it.
this day, and I hope nobody ever has to experience this kind of fear. As I was scanning all the windows,
There's a
making
reason
sure
why, like,
nobody was
all
outside, I looked in the rearview
Dominoes and
mirror.
stuff like that, like implicitly
There
state
was the
like
same
our
person.
drivers do not carry any
The
money.
same person I saw at that window. Eyes open wider than ever. I could see now that it was a woman, and I could ever so slightly see a smile begin to spread across her face. I opened my door and full-on sprinted into
Just
the woods,
fucking
not caring
bounces.
how much noise
And
I
then he
made.
disappeared.
I ran until I was out of
He
breath,
shrank
which
into
didn't
nothing.
take long, and I hid behind a giant log on the ground. I tried to cover my loud breathing with my hand as I waited and waited for what felt like hours
I accidentally
until I
suffocated
finally heard
myself.
sirens in the distance. I gathered up all the stamina I had left to run all the way back in the direction of the dirt road. Eventually, the glowing red
There he
and blue
goes.
lights came into view, and I had never felt better in my life. They were parked in front of my car, investigating with flashlights. I came out
They're
yelling
like,
at them
"Is
like
this
a
your shitty
lunatic to
car?"
help me. I fell to the floor and started to gag, almost throwing up from running so much. They picked me up and began to question
If they were
me,
just making
to
fun
which
of
I
his car,
explained
that would
everything
be-
to the
yeah,
best
that
of
would be
my
awesome.
ability. One of the 2 cars drove over to the building, and the 2 officers began to search the building. They came back with nothing except for a couple of spiky objects.
Case
These objects were
420?
exactly the same as
Whoa.
the ones used to slash my tires. The cops guessed that it was some kind of sick, demented couple, being that I saw the woman, but unfortunately they were never found. And that still kills me to this day. I obviously quit my job right after that and started working at a local grocery store. I know that I'll never forget seeing that woman at the back of my car.
I don't know. You kind of want to be wary of grocery store that uses that font for the deli. There might be something else going on there. That wasn't the one I was thinking of. Yeah, real people. There's one that has like a witch. Oh, this one's actually really good. It says 5.3 million views on it.
It was Halloween night of 2007, freshman year in high school. And I was with my friends, Ivan, Ryan, and Jesse. We were...
Come on, everyone did this with their friends. Right?
All dressed as the Super Mario characters. I was Luigi since I was the second tallest. Ivan was Mario since he's short and buff.
How is Mario short and buff?
Jesse was Waluigi because he's freakishly tall and skinny, and Ryan was Wario because he's just really fat.
Wow.
So they were the perfect group costumes for us. We live in a very non-congested suburban neighborhood with a decent amount of space in between houses. On Halloween, that's the worst thing ever. Less bang for your buck. We were trick-or-treating for hours, way past dark, and eventually came the time when most
you never dressed up as Mario
home.
With your parents, Mono?
My feet started to hurt, and I had to constantly switch arms to hold in the now 10-pound pillow sack of candy. But we planned on going until our bags were completely full.
I want to be Fat Luigi.
A lot of the houses by now weren't answering anymore. It was probably past their cutoff time for giving candy to trick-or-treaters. Approaching our next house, we saw a purple bucket on the stoop, which was the best feeling ever.
It was weird.
I was the one to get close enough to realize it was empty, which was the worst feeling ever.
Smack the microphone.
I turned around when I heard a knock at the window of the house. We all looked at the window. Couldn't see anyone, but heard someone call out, "Wait." The door opened, and an older man, late 40s, already balding, stepped outside.
Late 40s? That guy looks like he's like pushing 60.
Get us some more candy. I said we could just wait out here. He responded saying something along the lines of, "Nonsense, come on in, we'll get you your candy." I then stepped in and said, "It's all right.
Fuck, I told you to keep your eyes closed."
I told the guy to take care and apologized. He just stood there watching as we walked
blew
off,
up our spot.
Not saying anything. I felt bad, but at the same time, that guy seemed like a creeper, and I figured I just dodged a bullet not going in there. If the story ended there, it wouldn't be scary, so of course, it didn't end there. We skipped a few of the guy's neighboring houses just to get further away, and continued on with our business. We were walking down close to the nature preserve now, so there weren't many houses around us.
Jersey Monster.
At this point, we were now walking back closer to Jesse's house.
Jersey Monster.
I noticed Ryan had stopped walking.
Is it just me, or does this look like the Olive Garden logo? Right? Isn't it just the same colors?
And I turned around to see what's up. He said he heard someone moving from behind the trees in the preserve. Now, this was before everyone's phones had flashlights, so we couldn't just go searching in the woods for someone. Besides, we were just telling Ryan that it must have been a raccoon or something. You may think this is a bit of a cliche, but when things like this happen in real life, you always assume the more logical possibility. It's just natural. Why would we assume we were being followed?
I mean, some fucking
I had to put my arm around Ryan's shoulder and nudge him forward. A little ways down the street,
some man with red eyes opened his eyes in the background.
When we all stopped, the sounds of the footsteps from beyond the trees stopped as well. Ivan yelled at the obvious stalker to go away, or we would beat the shit out of them.
Mario's getting just fucking pissed.
I could hear the nervousness in his voice. The snap of a twig from beyond the trees triggered a fight-or-flight response in all of us. Me, Jesse, and Ryan all ran for it. Ivan was at first charging to attack, but he quickly followed after realizing we had all taken off. We ran down the dark street, and we all noticed the sounds of at least 2 or 3 pairs of footsteps crushing the
You
twigs
hear the
and leaves in
Scooby-Doo
the
music.
woods. We banked it hard right down Jesse Street when it finally came up
Fucking
and ran
book
straight
it.
for his
What does it
backyard,
look like?
entering
It
his
looks
house
like
through the
something.
back door. The first thing we did was peek out through his living room window. We couldn't see anyone. We all had to gather our thoughts and discuss what the hell just went down in his living room, when all of a sudden we heard Jesse's backyard gate slam shut. Jesse dove to turn off
It's
the
like
lights.
a dungeon gate.
There was a click and a bang from down in the den. It was more than likely Jesse's back door.
It was more than likely.
We all agreed to go down
Jesse's
armed
sex
with
dungeon in the
knives and
basement.
face them. Jesse turned on his back door light, but there was nobody out there. Just then the front door opened, and we all screamed like animals. Jesse's mom and sisters came rushing downstairs. They had just gotten home from their friend's little house party. We all rested assured knowing it was just them.
He's got
Jesse
knives
explained
and shit.
what happened, but made it seem a lot less
Oh,
dramatic.
sorry.
Me and Ivan went home after that and called it a night. At 12:30 a.m., I got a disturbing text message. It was from Jesse. It said, "It wasn't my mom." I texted back saying, "What?"
What if he texted back and he's
He
just like,
responded back quickly.
yeah, Jesse,
saying,
your mom's hot.
"It wasn't my mom in the backyard." My fingers slammed the buttons on my phone, responding back, "What do you
Jesse,
mean?"
your mom's kind of a MILF.
There was a long pause before he finally told me that his mom and sisters said they never went in the backyard. I told him to immediately check the backyard from his upper deck. He had already done just that. He also told his mom everything, and she had already called the police. They didn't find anyone back there, but Jesse did mention
Look
the guy
at
who
this
invited
cop.
us
This
in
cop
while
looks
trick or
sketchy
treat.
as fuck. This is like a Halloween costume cop. I think that's the second layer to this story that they don't tell you. Like this is the guy that was creeping on them.
Reading.
It's a fake cop.
Nothing ever became of that, and nothing ever
You can tell
happened
this
at
was made in
Jesse's house again after
2015.
that one Halloween night.
I love that one. And then he gets some Insidious music. It's good. Some good shit. All right. Next. A masterpiece. Okay. I really like that one. They actually bring back that like group of friends and a couple other stories. It's not the last you see of them. What's another one he made that I like? Oh, the boat one. Where is that? Bum, 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 bum. Did he like delete it? What the fuck is that story? Oh, there it is. All right, there's another one I really like.
There used to be a pond about half a mile away from my old house that I would commonly go fishing in. It was
As you
nicknamed
do.
Daryl's Pond. I still have no idea who Daryl was or why it was called that.
So why are you
But
fishing in
nobody
his
owned
pond?
it, so people would once in a blue moon go fishing there as well. It was usually me by myself, though. I had dug a pole into the ground where I would tie a noose to and from my small kayak. I'd say it was about 3 in the afternoon.
I think
when
these
rode out
stories
to
are
the middle
all
of the
like something
pond.
that.
The sweet
Dude, how about
spot
this
for getting a
haircut
decent
though?
catch. There was another person
Whose fucking hair is
coming out
that?
from the getting a decent catch.
It looks really familiar. Is it like some Kingdom Heart character?
There was another person coming out from the trees.
Guy
I
appears.
waved at him and gave him a smile. He hopped into a small boat floating by the edge of the pond and began to row over to me.
This
As he
guy,
got
I think,
close
is the
enough,
cop.
we were trying to
It's the
speak to him.
fucking cop from the other one. Right there. My Zoom is not working for that.
Didn't come off as obnoxious.
Rest
I
assured.
gave him a friendly, "Perfect day, isn't it?" "Yes, absolutely," he said. He didn't say anything after that, and I started to feel a bit awkward.
It's like
as if
Beetlejuice
I were obligated to keep some kind of conversation
mixed with
rolling
Mel
now.
Gibson.
"So, you come out here to throw some lines?" I asked. "No, I don't actually fish." "Oh, well, it's never a bad day to relax on the pond." I said. He continued to row closer to me until his boat collided with mine.
Dude, what the
I was
alright, well, I'm gonna
genuinely
fucking
uncomfortable
leave.
now. I didn't feel threatened, just weirded out. I was only 24 years old.
I like your haircut,
This guy
kid.
looked like he was late 40s or 50s. There was an awkward silence. I tried to just act like I was focused on trying to make a catch.
Why would you not
But by
just
now,
fucking
that
leave at
wasn't
this
even on
point?
my mind. This guy was weird. I didn't know what he wanted, and I was uncomfortable being so close to
Dude,
him.
I'm fucking out of
I
here.
felt him looking at me, or at least in my direction, as I faced halfway to the opposite direction of him. I took a quick glance to my right. Yeah, he was staring at me. I decided to be ballsy and lock eye contact with him. After about 4 seconds, he looked away. So, where are you from? I asked him.
Why would you
Up
ask?
there. He pointed behind himself, in the direction of the woodsy hill leading past the dirt road.
I'm from the trees.
Oh, you live by Suffolk? I asked. No, I'm not, he said. What made you decide to come out here? I said. Why not? I continued to try and uncomfortably fill the awkward silences that kept coming up. His responses were dry. He didn't contribute anything to what was barely a conversation.
You go out into the middle of nowhere to go fishing. All of a sudden, a man appears, rams into you with his boat on the lake that no one else is on. And then you just start having like fucking small talk with him. I don't know, man.
He just sat there, not doing
At this
anything,
point,
with half a smile on his face.
Like, what can you really do for this person?
Throughout. I was creeped out. My heart was racing at this point. I'd go as far as saying that I was nervous for my life. We were surrounded by trees in all directions in the middle of the pond. I started to row.
As soon as the other boat got close to me, I'd be like, all right, well, I'm fucking out of here.
Play it off as me just trying to find a better spot to find some fish.
No, just
I was
leave.
horrified when I saw he was following me. What a great day, huh? I felt a shake in my voice. I got close enough to the edge of the pond where I finally told the man, I think I'm gonna call it a day. I turned to see his reaction. He was still staring at me, but his smile was gone now.
Get real.
I can't let you leave, he said. He lifted his flannel to expose a handgun sticking out of his jeans pocket. As soon as I could process what I was looking at, I dove out of the boat.
Fucking flashes a gun
ran
at him.
a whole half-mile uphill through the woods back to my house and locked every door and window as soon as I made it home. I pulled down the blinds to the dining room window, leaving it open just a crack for peeking outside undetected. It started to get dark out, and I left every light in the house off, still peeking out to the front yard, making sure I wasn't followed. The time came when I finally
sit in
decided
front
I
of the
wasn't
window.
followed. I realize now, like you, that not calling the police immediately was a huge mistake. I kept my bedroom windows open to let the room air out.
Yeah, look
My
at that sick
bedroom was on
guitar,
the
though.
second floor, so I wasn't worried about being watched through the window.
Get bass.
About half an hour after shutting the light and falling under the covers,
Big
I
fishing
heard the
fan.
sound of leaves crunching from outside. I sat up to hear it more clearly. It was definitely something walking around out there. Normally I would assume it was a deer or a bear, but after what just happened, I was still
It is
in
the second
paranoia
bass
mode.
fishing.
I sat
look
up as
familiar.
still as a statue, except for my shaking out of
The
fear,
Dreamcast one?
waiting as the sounds of the steps stopped. Hey buddy, you up there? Are you trying to sleep? Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. I felt like 100 pounds just fell directly onto my chest.
Hey, buddy.
I didn't make a sound. I crept out of the room quietly downstairs to the kitchen and grabbed the phone, practically crawling on my way out to avoid being seen through the open blinds. I called 911 like I should have earlier in the temporary safety of my bedroom. I made sure to whisper into the phone, as I was still hoping that he hadn't yet heard or spotted me.
Trying to dock my boat here. Are you awake?
20 minutes felt like an hour as I sat behind my bed, waiting for the police to arrive in constant fear that I would hear glass breaking from downstairs, or a thud on the back door, or even just a voice again from down below my window outside. The police did a thorough investigation of the property in nearby woods.
Luckily,
turning
all
up nothing.
he needs to do is like get a different
They
haircut.
suggested I
And he'd
stay
be
with a friend or a
unrecognizable.
family member for a few days, and so I did.
It looks like
I
if
never
someone
heard from or
let me
saw
cut
the
my
man
hair
again,
when I was 10
but
years
I still
old.
moved a month later.
Or like 5 years old,
With
maybe.
the constant fear and paranoia of being
Yeah, I want to
watched
look like
through my
I want to look like
windows.
Cloud.
I feel much more comfortable fishing out by the bay now.
All right, here's the buzzer. That's the ending of Friday the 13th, part 1. I like that story. It's a good story. The man who went fishing. True hunting stories.
I was doing some night hog hunting in
Based
the
on a
woods
true
near
story.
my backyard. I was hiding in the tower I had built about a decade ago. In case anyone's wondering, I of course had a night vision scope attachment.
Of course.
I guess I'm what you would consider a hardcore hunter.
Yeah, he's got a scope on
I don't
his
want to
scope.
bore you with the unnecessary story prolonging
serious.
details, so I'll make this short. And I want everyone to know that though I agree this story sounds far-fetched and crazy, it is nothing but the truth. And I in a way actually consider myself lucky that I'll always have such a horrifying story to share. So, while I was sitting in the tower waiting for movement, it finally came. I took aim and found the source. But it wasn't at all a hog, or any kind of animal I was expecting. It was a person. A man wearing all black. Black sweatpants, black shoes, and a black hoodie with the hood over his head.
Got that
But
drip.
that wasn't the freakiest part. He was dragging a sack behind him. My heart started racing. I was pretty sure I was witnessing this guy trying to bury a body. I continued to watch him, but then he slowed down, and I swear to God, it looked as if he turned his head up to me.
To be fair, you're sitting in a tower with a gun, so who are you to judge?
I ducked down under the wooden walls of the tower, shaking in my boots. Yes, I had a gun, but just the idea of using it against a person is horrifying. I lay low, praying to God that he hadn't seen me. It wouldn't make sense if he could, though. It's practically pitch black out here, or at least that was my logic.
Yeah, I don't know.
Seconds felt like an eternity as I waited for the footsteps.
It would be
in the
pretty
leaves
creepy
to
though,
move
just to be
elsewhere.
out in the middle of
I didn't
nowhere
hear
and then
any
you see a dude.
footsteps.
It's like kind of awkward.
All I heard was the sound of a.
Like earlier today, and this happened the other night too. I was showing the pictures of the hike I went on earlier. And I like to go out like later at kind of when the sun sets. Like that's when I like to like be heading home from the hike. And there was like no one left in the park I was in yesterday. When I was heading out, and I was walking around, and then I was just kind of like doing laps in this one area I liked, and I was coming back, and I saw someone's phone, and it was dark already. It was like 8:00, and I should have been like going back to my car, but I was just kind of like pushing it, and there's just like someone with a light standing over by like the dock. It's just like fucking weird. Especially when you're by yourself. If there's other people within, eyesight, it's not as weird when there's just like strangers around. But I don't know, when you fucking run into someone in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, it's bizarre. So I was just like, all right, I'm just going to leave.
A foot hitting one of the wooden planks on the ladder of the tower. I felt the entire tower vibrate and shake as there were 2 more steps moving up the ladder. At this point, I was asking myself deep down, am I going to be able to shoot someone? But for some reason, whoever was down there decided not to climb all the way up, as I heard them jump back down to the forest ground.
He's just
and
looking
began
at the
dragging
fucking
sack
wall.
away. I think I stayed frozen like a statue for at least 10 minutes before even peeking over the ledge again. The coast seemed clear.
The shoes? Oh,
I had to get home and warn the police immediately.
The dark forest entry.
I hopped over the ledge and descended down the ladder. I turned on my pocket flashlight, which in hindsight was a stupid move considering the situation, and ran back in the direction of my
This guy
house.
sucks.
I was only able to run for about 10 seconds or so when I heard the rapid, manic footsteps crunching the leaves from behind me.
Of course, you gave
I
up
took a
all
look
your
over my shoulder.
advantages.
There he was, inches away from my face.
It's a Dementor!
I spun around and shot him in the shoulder. He stopped and screamed in agony, and I took that moment to finish my dash to my house. Again, in hindsight, I should have held him hostage somehow, but that doesn't even matter now. I called the police, who showed up within 15 minutes with a whole search squad, and I led them all into the woods to the exact
Yeah, I
location
just shot a
where I
guy
shot
in the
him.
woods.
There was a faint yet noticeable blood trail spilled onto the leaves, which led past the body bag, which the cops seized, and eventually right to the maniac, who was hiding under a log next to a tree. He was arrested and tried for the murder of Jin Quen Sakanaki, a Japanese corner store owner.
Bleeding out.
I don't know the full story behind it, but I do know I won't forget this one for the rest of my life.
Come on,
and I'll
get
also
up,
be
New
telling
York.
it for the rest of my life.
You lazy fucking state. It would have been better if, like, the person was saved, I guess, but... Where the fuck is the Pizza Witch story? We're going way back here. This is one of their first animations, I think. Oh, you know what? This one is the first one I saw.
I was looking for a car to buy for my son for his 18th birthday. I was searching all the typical car websites, cars.com, eBay Motors. They were all overpriced as expected. Craigslist was the only place to find an actual deal. About a week into my search, I found an 03
Look
Toyota
into his
Camry.
eyes.
It had 67,000 miles, no accidents,
You can see your
no
soul.
damage, and good condition for only $3,500. This seems like a steal for such a reliable car with such low mileage. The seller lived about 10 miles from me, which was a reasonable drive when looking for a car. I gave him a call to set up a time to come check it out.
This guy is always buying Toyota Camrys. It's always a Toyota
There were
Camry.
absolutely no problems with the car. He introduced himself as Bob. I brought
fucking
along
Tekken
$3,500
villain.
in cash, even though I planned on wiggling down the price as much as possible. I pulled up the dirt road to Bob's property.
This is the beginning of Tekken 5.
It was a tiny little house with a decent-sized property, only because I was a bit far from the nearest neighbors. The garage was open, so I walked over to see if anybody was inside, but except for an unusual amount of car parts, it was empty. The car was nowhere in sight. The only car on the property was an old pickup
Maybe
truck.
don't buy a car at night.
I went over to the front door to check the house numbers. It was the right address. The doorbell button was missing, so I knocked on the front door. I knocked for exactly 5 minutes before deciding to give the man a call.
Yeah, let's make a $3,500 transaction at
I heard
midnight.
the sound of a
In the
cell
middle of
phone
nowhere. It's a
ringing
good
from
idea.
inside the house. I was extremely confused at this point. Now I knew I had the right house. I didn't understand why, if he was home, why he wasn't answering. I decided I had to take a peek through one of the windows to see if anybody was inside.
Bro,
Peering through the glass,
just fucking
I couldn't
leave.
really
You're getting
see
so many
much, as It
chances.
was pretty dark inside the house. I saw a very old-fashioned dining room set, but across from that, I saw somebody standing
got
at
dick
the back
chairs,
door
look
of
out.
the house, staring outside. I figured that must have been Bob, so I knocked on the window, but he didn't even move. There was no gate or anything to the backyard. It was just a wide-open yard, since this wasn't a rural area. I simply walked around the house to the backyard. I didn't understand how he couldn't hear me. When I got
How
to the back
fucking
door,
dumb, man.
I made a shocking realization. The figure standing by the door was a taxidermied human being. I ran straight back the way I came and back to my car. I looked up one last time before driving off. The blinds to the window I had peeked into had been shut, but I could see two of the blinds bent open. Somebody was at that window watching me. You can probably guess I had the gas pedal to the floor the whole way home. The whole situation still makes no sense. All the car parts, the fact that there was no Toyota Camry, the taxidermied human being. The fact that there was no car there leads me to believe that whoever that man was wasn't planning on selling me anything. And that also leads to the disturbing thought that I was very close to becoming a lifeless statue staring out that man's back door.
That could have been me. Could have been me. Yeah, that one's intense. You ready for another pizza story?
This happened 4 years ago when I was
Yeah, look
still
at
in
that
high
pizza.
school.
I think I've been there before.
I was told to do my last delivery of my shift. I got in my car, which was a 1999 Camry, perfect for delivering pizzas. I GPSed the address on my phone. I live upstate in the country, so
Beautiful.
all pizza deliveries were long drives. I remember the sun was starting to set, so it was probably around 7 o'clock. I'd say
He's
after
got
a
a
good 15
Camry!
minutes of driving through the foresty dirt roads, my GPS said I had arrived.
It's the one
It
constant.
was an old little cottage-like house made almost entirely of wood. It was sitting all by itself in the middle of absolutely nothing but forest. The lawn was completely unkept, as the grass was almost at knee height. I was used to this kind
Almost.
of thing, so I didn't
It's
think
like
much
Bart
of
Simpson
it.
hair.
I took the pizza to the front door. There was no doorbell, so I knocked loudly on the door. Within 10 seconds, I heard the sound of footsteps hitting wood on the inside of the house. The footsteps made it to the door and stopped. I started to feel uneasy.
I want
I
that
got the
hat.
feeling that I was being watched. And that's when I noticed there was a peephole in the door. "It's the pizza guy," I called out. I heard a low, harsh-sounding voice on the other side of the door,
Your
telling me
pizza.
to bring the pizza out back. I didn't
Oh,
like the
yeah.
idea of going back there. Something didn't seem right.
Don't do that.
"Are you sure, sir?" I called out. He didn't answer my question. The sound of footsteps didn't move away from the door, so I had the feeling he was still watching me. I almost found myself walking back to my car, but I decided I didn't want any trouble with my boss.
Like, have
The
you ever
last
seen
time
Home
I brought a
Alone? I'm not
pizza
going back
he gave
there.
me attitude, so I reluctantly walked through the uncut grass and around the small house to the back. I remember there was a shed and a little patio back there. In the patio, there was a table with 4 chairs surrounding it. In one of the chairs,
The
facing away
green
from me,
bone.
I saw the head of somebody sitting in the seat. I began walking over and said, "Excuse me," but the person didn't even move an inch. "Excuse me," I said again louder.
Just Resident Evil 7.
And from behind me, I heard, "Psst, over here." I turned around to see a man poking his head out from the corner of the house,
It's a
looking at
zombie!
me with a crazed smile. "Come over here, I want to show you something." I freaked out, turned around, and ran around the house
It's one
in
of
the
the
opposite
monsters!
direction,
Yo, that
back to
girl
my
on the
car,
swing.
for
Watch
some
out.
reason still holding the pizza. I got in my car, started it, and got away from there. On my way back to the pizzeria, I pulled over to the side of the road.
I
and
pulled my
called the
Camry
police.
over.
Eventually, I was informed that there was no sign of anybody having been in that house for a long
I
time.
was driving my Toyota Camry.
I quit my delivery job a few days after that. I have no idea what would have happened to me had I gone up to that man, but to this day, I still wish I just turned my head to see who or what was sitting in that patio chair.
I get it. But who ordered the pizza? Yeah, that still wasn't the one I was thinking of. There's another oh, there it is. Is this it? More pizza. Is he driving a Camry
I'll
though?
never forget this night. The pizza place I worked at was about to close, and I was getting ready to go home when the phone rang.
I remember that
I
ring.
was working the counter alone that night, so I was taking calls. I picked up the phone. There was complete silence, so I hung up. About a
Golden
minute later,
phone.
the phone rings again, so I pick up again. Still silence. I was about to hang up again when I heard the very weak and cold voice of an old woman on the other end.
Oh, there she is.
She said she wanted a regular pie delivered. I remained
I
polite on
love
the phone,
calling pizza
but on
pie.
the inside I was screaming.
Let's go get a pie.
I just wanted to get home and end my shift.
I don't know. I like that.
I called out to my boss that somebody is requesting a delivery. He told me I had to go. I was upset at first, but I realized it's another tip, and the old ones usually tip the most, so I decided it was okay.
Not true.
I took down the address and told her it would be there
It's
soon,
literally the
but she had already
monsters.
hung up. I thought that was rude, but I ignored it and yelled to the chef that I
The
needed one
Neutron
regular.
household.
My boss told me to just go home after the delivery as the place would be closed.
His boss is
So
just
a little
fucking
before
chain
10
smoking
o'clock,
in the back.
I got in my car and put the
Watching like
address into my
creepypasta
GPS.
YouTubers.
The house was 7 miles away. The GPS took me to the quiet side of town. I arrived to the house. It was a small, one-floor house on a very quiet and empty block. I took the pizza and walked up to the door and rang the doorbell.
Why does this pizza smell like cigarettes?
There were no lights on in the house.
I don't know, lady.
I hoped that she hadn't given me the wrong address. I rang the doorbell again. There was still no answer. I was about to give up when I turned my head and saw somebody standing at the window. I got a little
like
freaked
young
out
Vinny
and backed up
delivers
at
pizza,
first,
the story.
but I eventually got closer to the window to see the person. It was an old woman, probably in her late 70s. She was just staring at me with a blank expression.
She looks like that dog, Droopy the dog. Like her hair is his ears.
I yelled to her through the glass that I had her pizza. She didn't react to what I said, so I screamed it louder. A big smile ran across her face.
It's Bilbo.
Not a pleasant, genuine smile. It was a smile that sent chills down my spine. I still remember that exact face she made through the window. I decided that I was freaked out enough and got back to my car and set the pizza in the passenger seat. I had to text my boss about this. I shot him a quick text and started my car, ready to get the hell away.
Yo, boss, this pizza
I looked
witch,
to my right
she tried to bite me.
To see the woman standing right outside my passenger side window.
This is awesome. I love this.
She had given me before.
This shot.
I put
the pizza witch, I like to call it. It's amazing.
My car and drive and floored it down the street, not looking back. My boss never made me do a late night delivery again.
The pizza witch. The weirdest delivery I ever had was going past the range of our delivery area, went to like a crustiest neighborhood in town, pulled up to an old house, and the dude literally just muttering to himself. Hey, Jew. Yeah. Having to like deal with people in their homes sometimes can be pretty crazy. Mostly benign, but some strange situations. Strange situations. What's this one? Unexplained mysteries. This is only 2 minutes long. What the fuck is this? The missing lighthouse. That's the Flannan Lighthouse mystery.
There was once an isolated island
off
the coast of Scotland where 3 lighthouse keepers lived and were responsible for keeping the building intact. One day, when their monthly supply ship dropped
that boat is gonna crash!
The island was silent. No response from the lighthouse keepers. Eventually, the captain and some crew members went to investigate and found a disturbingly empty lighthouse. 2 of the 3 waterproof coats were missing from their hangars, and the kitchen was left in a state as if people had left in a hurry. The lighthouse log only added more mystery to the situation. The log described how one of the keepers wouldn't talk, and the other continuously cried for hours. All this pain and fear seemed to be coming from what was
I wish someone would make like a King of the Hill
storm
episode about
looming
this.
in the distance.
Like with just the King of the
However,
Hill
this begs the
characters.
question, why were they so scared of a simple storm? They should have been safe in the brand new lighthouse, right? The log goes on to talk about how they all sat close together and prayed for the storm to be over. The final log states, "The storm has passed, the skies are calm, and God is over all."
Bill
The
starts
bodies were
drinking
never
kerosene
found, and
immediately.
the cause of their death is still a mystery to this day. The most accepted theory is that they somehow got
It's a pretty
swept out to
famous
sea
story.
during the storm, never to be seen again. But one final detail remains, one that scared the captain and his crew to the bone. The powerful storm described in the log didn't exist. There were no storms reported in the area. In fact, the skies were calm all day.
No, I just like that story. Oh, dude, this guy's back. The Midnight Office.
Working the night shift always sucked. I work in an office building and would constantly do the night shifts since it was the only time it would work out for me. I was just about always the only person on the floor I worked on, possibly in the whole building.
Nah, that came out way before the
There would always
lighthouse,
be a
though.
kind of
This is like from
eerie feeling to being
2015.
in such a big building with most of the lights out and absolutely no one around. But on the upside, it was peaceful and less stressful, and I was able to get a lot of work done. There was this one night, though.
Yeah,
It
I
was a
kind
Friday
of can
night,
see that.
around 2 in the morning. I was typing away on my keyboard when I heard a noise from outside my cubicle. It sounded like just a random crack from the walls or something. It's unusual in this building, but I didn't get too concerned about it. I resumed typing away and was once again interrupted by a sound. This time, the sound of a computer starting up.
Isn't this
It
like a
caught me
scene
off
from The
guard.
Matrix,
I was
basically?
sure nobody else was working the night shift. I stood up on my chair to get a view over the cubicle walls. The glare of a computer screen in the dark was visible in a cubicle on the opposite side of the
Museum
room.
during Christmas.
Then I did something stupid, something I regret. I asked if there was anybody there in a yell, hoping to get an answer from a fellow employee. But instead, I saw the glaring light of the computer monitor across the room turn off, and there was once again nothing but darkness on that side of the room. I started getting nervous. I turned off the lamp and computer screen so that I wouldn't give away my position to whoever that was.
I think it's kind of too late.
I crouched down and tiptoed out across to a nearby cubicle. There was just utter silence.
I like how he's just like
I sat
wearing
waiting for something to happen.
like dark
for
clothes,
God knows
blue
how
tie.
long.
Like he looks like
But I
Sonic for
eventually
some
decided
reason,
the coast was
right?
clear.
The
I
blue
tiptoed
Sonic
down
tie.
past all the cubicles until I reached the opening near the exit door to the stairs and elevators.
Yeah, it's like literally the
And
Matrix.
that's when I realized that my fearful suspicion was true. There was a man crouched down behind a plant in the corner of the room, dressed in all black. I felt my heart sink as I noticed him, but it didn't seem like he knew that I noticed him. I
Oh
turned
yeah,
back
you're
to the
you're
stairway
fucked, man.
door.
If you're on the night shift
There was
right
no
now and
way
you're
I was
watching
going to wait
this,
for the
and it's
elevator to take a
3:33
chance.
a.m., the
I
devil
casually
will
opened the
come
door
and
closed
kiss
it
you
behind me,
on the
proceeding to
lips.
walk down the stairs. After making it down about 2 flights of stairs, I heard the door above me push open aggressively, followed by manic echoing footsteps coming fast down the stairs. I raced down the stairs, running as fast as I could, all while the footsteps above me were getting louder. I finally made it to the first floor,
Run.
raced through the lobby, and out the front door. Whoever was in there didn't follow me.
Yo, his anime
I
hair
immediately
got all
called the
messed up.
cops, along with one of my bosses. My boss said no one was scheduled to work except
The
for
fuck
me.
would you draw your boss
The
like?
cops scanned the place from top to bottom.
What do you want, kid?
There was
I'm
no
busy
one
getting
there.
laid.
I couldn't help them out with any description other than he was wearing all black. I did continue to do the night shift for about a week after that, with my boss allowing me to lock all possible entrances to the floor, including the elevators. But I still wasn't comfortable with it, so ever since, I've been doing the day shifts.
What if it was his girlfriend? Yeah, it was the girl from the picture. Oh my god. Blowing the lid off this fucking story. All right. We'll do one more animated story from Llama Arts. This YouTube channel is called Llama Arts, by the way. It's a comfort. I mean, for some reason. Oh, this is a good one. You want to go check out the videos for yourself? We've been watching these for years. We used to watch them on Rabbit and shit. People would like come into the channel and be like, what is this?
So me and a couple of my buddies went camping last summer alongside the Willamette River.
Yo, look at Mario, though. Did something change? Did he become the dad from American Dad?
Actually had a decent hike into the deep end of woods. We did some night fishing, listening to music, and basically drank to the point where everything was funny later in the night. I would guess we finally called it a night somewhere past 2 a.m. I shared a tent with one of my buds, while the other two shared another tent. We heard them laughing about something. At first we laughed at the sound of their laughing, but it soon got annoying and we yelled for them to shut up. One of them responded, "It isn't us." I sat up, startled at the response.
Wario
I came
responded.
to realize that it was the sound of only one person laughing, and it didn't sound like either one of my friends.
This
Even in
laughing
my
sample
drunk
is
state,
kind
I
of weird,
realized
though.
how odd it was
I've
for
heard it in
somebody
other
to be out
stories.
this far in the woods so late at night. The laughing gradually got closer and louder to our campout. My friend shot up and looked at me.
It gets
with a
kind of
worried
loud. I'm
look
gonna turn it
on his
down a little.
face. I heard my other friends scream over to us that they were getting freaked out. As the laughing got
We
even
heard the
closer,
sound of a
I could make
1998
it out
Toyota
very
Camry.
clearly to be the laugh of a male, probably in his 30s or 40s. He sounded like he was as drunk as us, messing around with friends, but we only heard his laugh, nobody else. There was something indescribably creepy about his laugh, too, as if it was missing something to it. You had to be there to understand what I mean. The laughing was now just at the edge of our campsite.
Why'd you leave your fire
We
going?
couldn't hear any footsteps at all. Now that may not seem like a big deal. It was impossible to move through that without making noise. And finally, all of a sudden,
Yeah, this guy hates
the
people in
laughing
their
stopped
40s.
completely. We had no idea where whoever that was standing, as he hadn't made a single stepping sound. We sat there in silence looking at each other. My friend was clearly freaking out, but he was keeping it together the best he could. Finally, something broke the silence. The sound of something rubbing against the cottony fabric of the tent. We saw the outline of a hand through the moonlight.
He only has
pressing on
4
the tent.
fingers!
We both screamed at the top of our lungs before getting out of the tent. We ran as fast as we could through the woods, our other friends following us. After about 5 minutes of running, we somehow found our car. I actually puked from running so much before taking the wheel. I don't condone drinking and driving, but I still believe we were just in this situation.
Oh
By far
shit.
the most horrific experience of my
They
life.
missed one. One
No
of their
idea
friends
who
wasn't
or What
there.
the hell that was, or what they wanted.
Whoa. Made a weird sound at the end there. All right, one more Walmart. Yeah, they left Wario behind. That's how you create a villain. You're taking notes. Looking for a good one. Looking for a good one. I don't know if this guy even makes videos anymore. No, they do. I know there's another one that I really liked. I can save it for next time, I suppose, if I can't find it. Craigslist horror stories. I.e. all Craigslist.
This story took place a long time ago, back in 2002, when Craigslist was in its early years. Many wouldn't know, but back in those days, Craigslist was a lot different. It was a lot more so an online garage sale, or just a place where people would list old things that still had some value.
I'll take the Furby and the PS1.
I got a basketball hoop, a hockey net, and a spoiler for my car, all free in perfect condition in that same year. You'd be lucky if you found something like that.
Yeah, look at that
these
spoiler
days.
on that car. Damn.
Anyway, me and my son were dying to buy a hockey net so we could practice in the
1998
cul-de-sac we
Camry.
lived in. For the record, this was before I got that free one I mentioned. Wouldn't you know it, on Craigslist there was an ad for a slightly used regulation-size hockey ball
sick,
for only
dude.
$50.
Yo,
It came with
dude.
a puck and 2 slightly used hockey
Comes
sticks.
with a puck, dude.
I still have a picture of that ad to this day. It seemed like the perfect deal, but he lived about 2 hours
It's
away.
just like the kazoo
I
kid.
called the number he had listed, and he sounded pretty normal on the phone. He had a pretty deep, dark voice, but nothing that would be off-putting. I remember his voice being a bit emotionless. He agreed to meet halfway due to the distance, said he'd put the stuff in the back of his pickup truck. He said he could only
That
come
is
after
the
he got
kazoo
off from
kid.
work, though, which was much later in the day, way past dark. We agreed to meet at some rest stop off the highway.
Oh, that's a
Me
fucking
and my son, who was 11 at the time,
That's where
took-
you don't go to a rest stop off a highway to meet. Oh my god. That's like the dumbest place you could ever meet someone. Ever. That's where like prostitutes get murdered constantly and shit. Like, the fuck? That's the dumbest place to
my
go.
wife's minivan, the only car that would be able to fit that huge thing. Within an hour, we were at the truck stop. which was empty at this hour, but was decently lit by 3 big light posts. I parked right under one of the lights and waited.
Yeah, great idea.
A pickup truck pulled in off the highway right on time. He stopped right in front of me. I went over to his window.
Generic pickup truck.
There was nothing in the back of his truck. "You Steve?" he asked me.
You Steve?
"Yep, that's me," I said. "Alright, my buddy's bringing in the stuff with his truck." The guy pulled up behind my car and put it in park. I suddenly had a bad feeling.
Yeah, get the fuck out of
I told my
there.
son to get back in the car and lock every door except mine. 2 more pairs of headlights came off the highway into the lots, surely enough pulling up next to me. And, not surprisingly at this point,
Maybe you should leave.
there was no hockey equipment in either one of them. My heart was racing. I was worried. Not for me, but for my young son who I, for some reason, brought with me on this trip.
He's like, I'm an idiot.
Of large men, mixed
Why did
with
I bring my
heavy-set and
son?
muscular physiques, stepped out of the
Dad,
2
why'd you
pickup
wake me up
trucks
at
behind the
midnight?
first one. They eyed me from head to toe. Giving that
It's like a
typical
scene from Breaking
intimidation
Bad.
Stare down. Then this bald guy wearing sunglasses said in a deep voice, "Where's the money?" I instantly pulled out my
Is
wallet
the fucking
and handed it to him.
hockey
begging
goal
him to just
filled
let
with
me and my son
like meth
go.
or what?
He pulled out like $100 and was pissed, expecting more. He then sent 2 of his goons or whatever to get my son. At this point, I screamed and begged for him not to take him.
Oh shit.
One of the men broke the glass to the minivan back door.
What the
and I
fuck?
vividly remember the disturbing, heartbreaking screams of my young son. What happened next was what I can only explain to be a miracle from God answering my prayers.
Is there like a ghost car right
was
here? You see
entering
this?
the lot from off the highway. All the men stopped and turned to look at it. As it got closer, my heart literally dropped in excitement as I saw it was a police car. The lights suddenly began to flash as he got close enough to see what was going on.
Dude doesn't
All
even
the men were back in
move.
their trucks within seconds, speeding off down the highway. Well, at least 2 of them. The truck in the back was caught immediately by the police car, and backup arrived shortly. I explained everything to them, and they got the men that were caught to rat out on the others surprisingly quickly. I guess luckily the guys in the back truck weren't very loyal to whoever their leader was, if they even had any type of
You can tell
leader.
that guy's bad because he's got crazy
Believe it or
hair.
not, I had a police escort all the way home to make me and my son feel safer. I don't want to get into all the legal stuff, but I'll just say that
Fucking
all 4 men except
traumatized.
for 1 was caught, and I'm pretty sure that was the driver of the first pickup truck. Needless to say, my Craigslist days weren't over at that point, but I have always been much more protective of my son and much more cautious of Craigslist meetings since then.
I decided to stop bringing my son to meet anonymous strangers from Craigslist at midnight on a fucking highway rest stop in fucking New Jersey. Jesus Christ. Lesson learned. You know, you live and you learn. You just gotta, you know, some mistakes you gotta make to learn from. Who would have known unless you did that in real life? You know? You never would have been able to figure it out. I don't know. We'll do one more of his. True creepy thunderstorm horror stories. The cop's just like, wow, you're fucking dumb, huh?
I was spending a weekend with my uncle on his ranch when my parents were renovating the new house we had just bought. It was my second night there, a Saturday, and it happened to be during one of the biggest thunderstorms of the year. I'd say there were at least 3 crashes of thunder and lightning per minute. And we were in the heart of the storm because the thunder would crash not even a second after the lightning.
Whoa.
I always enjoyed listening to storms while laying in bed. So I stayed up a little later watching TV, just enjoying the ambiance.
Bro, what are you watching?
After the movie I was watching finally ended, I turned off the TV and tried to fall asleep.
What the fuck were you watching?
As I heard the lightning strike from outside, I could have sworn I heard some kind of metallic thud coming from outside at the same time. I didn't pay it too much mind. 20 seconds later.
Is this fucking the Shawshank Redemption thing happening?
Distinct metallic thud coming from outside to match the timing of the lightning.
They're trying to break in when the lightning hits, or the thunder, rather.
But my uncle really is a kind of creepy guy, and I was never close with him, even remotely. So for that reason, I didn't feel right going to wake him up.
My uncle was too creepy to wake up.
Now I was getting concerned.
It's literally the Shawshank Redemption plot.
After the third time, I finally got out of bed and walked over to the window of the guest bedroom. The water pouring down on the window.
Well, not plot, I guess, but you know what I mean.
Out there in the dark fields. A flash of lightning momentarily lit up the property, but I couldn't see anything. However, once again, the sound of a metal hit accompanied it. The sound was so close now, it sounded like it was coming from the left.
I haven't seen any SCP ones really, no.
I was going to do something I knew my uncle wouldn't be happy about. It would be a bit messy, but I was going to open the window and peer outside to see if I could see what the sound was. I unhooked the window lock and slid it up, and immediately the wind of the storm blew drops of rain into the room.
Immediately.
I stuck my head out the window and looked to the left, and at that very moment, lightning lit up the property once again, and I could see a person dressed in all black crouched down by the outside.
Oh, I know what I want to watch after this.
Raised in the air. And before the sky went dark, I caught the briefest glimpse of what the sound was coming from. The person was bashing at the basement door lock. I pulled my head in and quietly shut the window, making sure to lock it. I was in a panic. I feared he might have seen or heard me. I ran back to bed and pretended to be asleep, facing away from the window. Lightning crashed once again, but this time there was no metallic thud. My heart must have dropped as I realized this.
No metallic thud.
I just stayed put in bed for the longest time, hoping whoever was out there would go away. After maybe 3 more lightning crashes without any thuds accompanying them, I thought it would be safe to go tell my uncle. I turned to face the window and screamed. There was a figure, clear as day, standing at the window, looking in at me. I screamed as loud as I could and ran straight to my uncle's room. He went outside with his hunting rifle with nothing on but his pajamas, not even socks. He ran around the entire property yelling like a madman, but didn't find anyone. The next morning, we were able to better see the marks on the basement door lock. It was almost bashed open. Maybe 3 or 4 more good hits would have done it, according to my uncle. He was proud of me for picking up on it. Luckily, I was out of there that same day. My uncle hasn't told us of any incidents since, so I think he's been okay. Not that we talked to him much at all. I'm grateful I stayed up a little later that night watching that movie, because I may have just stopped a robbery, or possibly much worse.
Or something much worse. Okay, like I said, that's Llama Arts. Go check out their YouTube channel if you like those animations. I've fallen asleep to those more times than I can count. I don't know. Something comforting about it. I want to switch up gears a little bit. There's another story I just remembered that I heard in a podcast a long time ago. It's called The Showers. It's a creepypasta thing, kind of, but I don't know. It's like a little bit more high quality than your normal creepypasta. And I heard it in the No Sleep podcast, like in 2012 or something like that. I'm trying to find the exact version because the guy who read it I really liked. But I don't know. I don't know if I have the right narrator. Oh, wow, this one's way too long.
For the internet to...
Yeah, this isn't the right story. Huh, I can't find it. Cannot find it. I'll look for a second, real quick. I don't know. I like this guy's reading of it for some reason. I think it's on YouTube. It should be. Maybe not. It would have been a long time ago. Yeah, 2012. Oh, I don't know where in the story it is, though. Let me see if
The
it's...
important thing about 1,000 questions.
Nah, it's a little too long. I don't think it would be good for this right now. I don't remember it being... It says it's like an hour long. I don't remember it being that long. Let me see if there's a shorter version. Nah, they're all an hour. Fuck that. Yeah, that's not happening. Maybe some other time. Oh, B-Busta did a reading of it. I like his. Yeah, it's still way too long. Damn, that's a bummer. It's a cool story. We'll watch it some other time. That's way too long, though. Mono, what were you saying? You had some weird, like, found footage, urban exploring ones you found? We'll watch one top 5, and then we'll watch some urban exploration. Yeah, what are some good proper people ones that were spooky? There were some shorter ones. I'm looking for a good top 5. The 5 most haunted houses in the world. Number 5.
A haunted house is a home that is perceived as being inhabited by disembodied
Yeah, I like the proper
spirits
people
or
ones where like weird things
who may have
happen to
been
them.
former residents or were familiar with the property. There are millions of haunted homes around the world, but here are what I think are 5 extremely creepy cases. With
This is
undead
another channel I just
haunted
put
homes.
on at night to pass out to sometimes.
Monte Cristo Homestead, Australia. This historic house in June, Australia, has seen its fair share of evil since its construction.
Oh yeah,
in
I turned it way down
1885.
because the other one
Crawley
was
family
loud.
were the first residents, and
Yeah.
during this time, the
Pretty much
family
better.
laid witness to many deaths, including the tragic death of a young woman who was
Yeah,
dropped
dude, I
down the
sleep
stairs.
just the spooky
A maid
stories.
of the
That's pretty much
family
what
is
I
believed
go
have
to sleep
fallen from
to.
the balcony, and a stable boy apparently burned to death on the property. There was also a mentally ill man named Harold, who was chained up in the caretaker's cottage on the property for 40 years.
I don't
He
know,
was
there's something
found killed up
relaxing
next
about
to
it.
the body of his dead mother and sent to a mental institute where he died shortly after. The tragedy doesn't end with the Crawleys. After the house was left in 1948,
That's
it was
right.
taken over by a group of caretakers.
It was
one
Harold
of
all
whom was
along.
murdered in the caretaker's cottage, with the killer never being found. Since all of these terrible events, all the new residents have reported seeing ghostly figures, strange lights, invisible force fields, phantom sounds, and animal mutilations that have no explanation.
Oh
To
my
this day,
God.
the Monte Cristo homestead is considered the most haunted house in Australia.
These are ghosts up here. You see that?
Borgvattnet, the haunted vicarage, Sweden. Borgvattnet is a small village in Jamlat country, north
Yeah, I love
Sweden,
both those channels,
and in its
Calamity.
location is the most
I haven't
haunted
watched
home in Sweden.
Nightmind in a
The
while.
home was built in 1876, and its first
We used to watch
paranormal
Nightmind
incident was
all the
documented
time,
in 1927,
back in the
when
day.
the residents reported many strange happenings, including one particular encounter with something paranormal. He was on his way up into the attic to gather his laundry when he witnessed
I
his
like
laundry
Nexpo a
being
lot.
torn down from the line by an unseen force. Rudolf Tangent, a priest who lived
link
at
to
the
this one?
vicarage during the 1930s, saw an old woman dressed in grey appear in a room. He followed her as she walked away, but she
There you
vanished
go.
in front of his eyes. In the 1940s, a man and his wife said they had several paranormal experiences in the house, including unexplained sounds and moving objects. On one occasion, a woman who was staying in the guest room was awoken in the middle of the night to see 3 old women sitting there staring at her. She quickly turned on the light and they were still looking at her. However,
I would
they
never
now
want to
appeared
sleep
blurry
next to
and
that
soon
heater. Are you
vanished
kidding
from
me?
our sight.
You just wake up
In
feeling like shit.
1945, Eric Lindgren moved into the home and he began a journal recounting many of his own experiences in the house. He reported being thrown out of his chair regularly by an unseen force. The current building is serving as a restaurant as well as a
But yeah, if you
guest
don't wake
house.
up
And if
burning.
you're brave enough to stay there, you'll receive an overnight stay certificate to prove it.
Bump,
The White
bump,
House, Washington,
bump.
D.C., USA. Probably the most famous house, but not many people know that the White House is said to be the home of not just the President of America. And with its incredible history and historical residence, it's no wonder it's had its fair share of paranormal stories and is considered one of the most haunted homes.
Oh,
in the
did they get
United
mad at
States.
No Sleep about
During a
people
visit
like
to the White
narrating their
House, Winston
stories?
Churchill, a former UK Prime Minister, was staying
That's
in the
pretty
Lincoln
much
bedroom.
just
He
what
had just
people do,
finished
though.
bathing and walked into his room where he saw Lincoln standing by the fireplace. He refused to sleep in that room again after that night. Other people that have said they have seen the ghost of Abraham Lincoln include Presidents Teddy Roosevelt, Herbert Hoover, and Dwight Eisenhower.
People
First
just take those
Lady
things from
Jackie
anywhere,
Kennedy and
though.
Lady Bird Johnson, and presidential children Susan Ford and Maureen Reagan. Maureen and her husband both witnessed Lincoln standing by the same fireplace where Churchill had once seen him. Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands also had an encounter with Lincoln when she heard a knock on the door in the middle of the night. When she answered, she was confronted by the ghost of Abraham Lincoln, standing in the hallway, who vanished before her eyes. President Andrew Jackson is believed to haunt the Rose Room, with numerous White House employees reported
What are all these
hearing his
ghost
hearty
presidents
laugh or
doing?
him in a fit of rage swearing violently. The ghost of Abigail
have
Adams
anything
has
else to
also been
do?
seen floating through the East Room. This is apparently the room in which she used to
What if
hang
they
her
didn't even
laundry,
die when
and
they were
several
at the White
eyewitnesses,
House? Why would their
including
ghosts
staff
just
and
go to the
visitors,
White
have
House?
seen her seemingly float across the room with her arms outstretched as if she was carrying a laundry basket. Various other spirits have also been seen, and sudden cold spots, disembodied footsteps, voices, knocks, and screams are frequently reported at the seemingly very
That actually
haunted
sounds like it would be like a
convention
really good Adult Swim show. Just all the ghosts of
50
the
Berkeley
presidents
Square.
like living in the
large
White
Victorian
House, and they
house
just
on
all hate
Berkeley
each
Square,
other.
Mayfair in central London is thought to be the oldest unaltered building in London, and also holds another status. It's the most haunted home in
And they're
the city
constantly
and quite
like
possibly the UK.
torturing the current
Legendary
president.
tales vary, but a few that stand out are the strange goings-on in the attic, said to be haunted by a spirit of a young woman who committed suicide there. She supposedly threw herself from the top floor windows
Fighting
after being
for-
abused by her uncle.
for control.
Legend has it her ghost has resulted in several people being frightened to death. Another tale is that of a young man who was locked in the attic and fed only through a hole in the floor until he eventually went mad and died. In the Victorian
that would
era,
piss me
when
off.
being occupied by George Canning, he claimed to have heard strange noises and had numerous paranormal experiences whilst living there. After George Canning's residency in 1885, the house was bought by a Mr. Myers in the late 1800s. After a breakup with his fiancée, it was said that Mr. Myers would lock himself in the attic room and slowly went mad over the rest of his life. During his stay at the house, it fell into gross despair and the haunted reputation began to grow. As a bet, Lord Lyttelton stayed a night in the building.
I don't know. The
attic.
depressing
He
ghosts
brought
are
a
never
shotgun
really
with him,
that
and during the
interesting.
night
Like he's
fired
just
an
locking himself in a
apparition which
basement until he goes
appeared. In
mad.
the morning, he attempted to find what he had shot at, but could only find shotgun cartridges. The next year, the local council brought a summons to the house's owner for failure to pay taxes, but due to the house's reputation as haunted, they were let off. In the late 1800s,
Like, what about a
Mayfair
story about
reported
someone
that
like
maid
getting
who stayed in the
their head
attic
cut
room
off
had
or
gone
like
mad.
buried in
It was
concrete?
later reported that she died in an asylum the day
Or they
after.
fall in
On the day
quicksands.
she was found, a nobleman took up the challenge to spend a night in the house. He unexpectedly died that night, and the coroner pronounced his death was caused by extreme fright. Another nobleman spent the night in the attic room, and he too was affected by whatever is living up there. It was said he was so paralyzed with fear that he couldn't speak. In 1887, sailors from HMS Penelope stayed a night in the house. By morning, one was found dead, having tripped as he ran from the house. The other reported having seen the ghost of Mr. Myers coming at them aggressively.
One just
No
fucking
phenomena has been
died.
reported since the house was finally bought by the Maggs brothers in the mid-1930s, but people say they just don't want the publicity of owning one of the world's most haunted houses. It was a best-selling book, and in 1973 was made into a blockbuster movie that scared millions around the world. So much so that viewers were passing out with fear in the cinema. But worse yet, it was based on
Shining
a true story.
or
The Exorcist.
Exorcist.
A young girl is possessed by the devil, and a lengthy exorcism is
I
taking
don't know why I
place
said The
by
Shining.
two priests in order to banish the devil from her body. But the real story is far more terrifying. In 1949, a 14-year-old boy named
The
Roland
Exorcist
Doe was
still
said to be
holds up
possessed
pretty
by a
well.
demonic force
Like, I
after
don't
taking part in
really
several
enjoy
Ouija
watching
board
it particularly.
sessions. The case of Roland Doe is one of the most well-documented cases.
The channel's
of
just called
demonic
Top
possession ever
Fives.
recorded, and it all started in Roland's house in St. Louis, Missouri,
got that
America. After his Ouija board
That
session,
real,
squeaking and
like,
marching feet could clearly be heard on the
important real
floorboards,
estate
and
on
furniture moved
YouTube.
by itself. Objects levitated, and on one account, a container of holy
The
water
original
placed in the
top
road
5.
violently smashed to the ground. Scratches also began to be carved into his flesh by unseen claws. This
Yeah,
was
The
all
Exorcist
witnessed
is
by his
pretty
family and
intense,
the priests.
honestly.
The demon that was said to be taking over the young boy was attempted to be removed at the house by performing an exorcism, but was unsuccessful. And during the exorcism,
Nah,
the boy
it's
slipped
just
one of
this
his
one
hands
guy.
out of the restraints he had been put in, and slashed the priest's arms with a bed spring.
It's
Roland
way
was
better than,
finally
like, a
rid of
Mojo
whatever
List
was
channel.
controlling him, and lived on to have a successful career and became a loving father.
The
and
narrator is
grandfather,
also the
never to
guy,
speak of
like,
past
doing all the
events.
research and
But
stuff.
since the boy and his family left the house, all new occupants arrived.
It's not like
extremely
fucking
bad luck,
highbrow
which is said to
content,
be
but
linked to the
it's not
evil still
Mojo.
lurking there. When a paranormal investigator entered the house, he was said to be attacked by an unknown force in what was once Roland Doe's room. The house was featured on an episode of Ghost Adventures, and I highly recommend
is
you
what
check
it
out.
is.
So that's 5 extremely creepy homes. Do you have any explanation for those paranormal events, and have you had any paranormal encounters in your home? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.
I thought that said 5 terrifying grandmas caught on video. Yeah, Zach Bagans is coming back. Do you see Zach Bagans' Twitch channel? He like gets haunted on stream. All right, I'm looking for another video, and then this is gonna be the last one. Then we're gonna do American Horror Story. Then we do the horror. Looking for a good one. Oh, you know what? We'll watch one of my favorite channels. These are a little bit longer form. A little longer form. There we go. Here we go.
Somewhere in South Australia, a small town holds a mystery in the palm of its hand. The disappearance of a young woman in October
This channel's called
2016
Bedtime Stories. This is one of my
would
favorite
turn the
channels.
community upside down and leave residents and local police questioning what happened
The production
to
values
the
is great.
Watervale runner.
Feels like a real show. That's got like an intro song. Look at this shit. Aliens, conspiracies, cryptids. What is that? Strange deaths, ghosts, mysteries, other dimensions.
There is no denying that Australia is as stunningly beautiful as it is unique. From its weird and wonderful
I
wildlife
mean, you sound
to
Australian
its
though,
rich
mate.
and diverse landscapes,
Sound a little-
unlike those of any other nation,
Sounds a
the
little
land
loud.
down under truly is one of a kind.
Turn down 10.
And yet such a huge
How's that?
landmass has such a relatively small population. The country's interior, known as the Outback, is a boiling,
the Outback.
inhospitable desert. And so more than 24
I
million
definitely want to
people
visit Australia
live their
someday.
lives around the outskirts in more forgiving climates, which range from tropical to temperate. Many towns and cities are vast distances apart, divided across just 6 states. A truly fascinating
And
place,
New Zealand over here.
Australia
way
is
over there.
also a bit of an enigma, much like the following tale, which comes to us courtesy of 26-year-old Jenny Roth. The story takes place in Watervale,
Even the early videos
a
are
small
amazing,
town
but
situated in the
they
Clare
get so
Valley
much
of
better
South
over time.
Australia, a region famous for its vineyards and wine distilleries. With a climate not too dissimilar to Northern California, the lush green valleys and quiet country roads seem like the last place you would expect to hear of any sinister happenings. But as we shall see, looks can be deceiving. What follows is a tale that defies belief and sends an ominous chill up the spine.
Oh, this is a great one
And
to
it
fall
all
asleep
began
to.
on the evening
I
of
just
the
wish the
29th of
episodes were longer
September
for that.
2016.
But this is a good one. This is a
Jenny
great
had
one.
not lived in the area long, just a couple of months. She had moved from Adelaide with her girlfriend Abigail to be close to her partner's terminally ill father, and being a city girl since the day of her birth, the quietness of the countryside had been something of a shock to the system. The nights were dark, darker than anything she had ever known, and life away from the hustle and bustle of a big city was not only an inconvenience, but also terribly boring. There were upsides to this relative isolation, however. The air was fresh and clean, the landscapes were beautiful,
Makes it
and
sound
there
pretty
seemed to be
fucking
a quiet
nice.
harmony, a peacefulness to everything. She had grinned from ear to ear the first time she had heard the chorus of crickets after sunset. The people were much friendlier too. She and Abigail had only been living there for a few days before the neighbours arrived on the doorstep to say hello
But it
and
was
welcome them
too
to the small
good to
town.
be true.
She had struck up something of a friendship with Marie from next door, and they would often catch each other for a chat whenever Jenny went outside for a smoke. Marie, being the outdoorsy type, was nearly always pottering around in the garden, weeding or digging or cutting the lawn. On this
Play, like, the
particular
Hobbit
evening,
song.
Jenny stepped out onto the front porch for her customary post-dinner cigarette,
Doing them
to
stretches.
find her neighbour getting ready to go for her customary evening run. They spoke casually for a few minutes, and as always, Marie invited Jenny to go along with her. As always, Jenny politely declined.
I love the music too.
It wasn't that she was averse to running as such, but as it was just after 6
Some good
p.m. in
atmosphere.
late September, the sun would be setting in little over an hour, and she already found the darkness and remoteness of the countryside unnerving as it was. "Suit yourself," said Marie. "See you later." And with that, she hopped off her porch and
You should
jogged
throw
away.
in some more like
Jenny lit her
Australian
cigarette and
colloquialisms.
inhaled deeply as she watched her neighbour leave.
All right, mate.
She knew where Marie would be heading. Her route usually took her outside the small town of Watervale, along miles of dusty country roads.
I'll be back when the
surrounded by
wombat
open
cries.
fields, speckled
You know,
with thickets
so
of
we
trees
know we're in
and small
Australia.
woodlands. Beyond all that loomed a massive expanse of grassland and untamed bush, with only a few pockets of civilization dotting the landscape, as wide open and stunning as it was intimidating. Jenny could well appreciate why Marie insisted upon her evening runs, and wondered briefly whether she could ever get used to living in a place like this.
Big
It was a nice
stretch.
change from what she and Abigail were used to, but something about this town made her feel exposed,
Boy,
both
a koala
mentally
bear.
and physically. In the end, she decided no. Besides anything else, there wasn't enough in this small town to keep her occupied. Watervale was just one of those places where nothing ever happened.
No, don't say
And
that.
with that thought still echoing somewhere in the recesses of her mind, she stubbed out the butt of her cigarette and
You
headed
can't
indoors,
think that.
completely unaware of just how wrong she would be.
No
The
games today.
morning
We're
of the
just watching
30th of
things.
September started out bright and clear, and Jenny was pulling freshly laundered clothes out of the washing machine, ready to hang out on the line in the backyard. She grabbed her cup of coffee,
Really? There's
along with
towns
the
in
laundry
Australia where the
basket,
alcohol's banned?
and exited the house through the side door, and was surprised to
Interesting.
see Marie sitting outside on the lawn, stock still and staring at the ground. It was rare for her neighbour to be up so early, and it was even more unusual to see her sitting doing nothing in particular.
Oh yeah, totally.
She was usually always
Boredom is
attending to
bad.
some chore or another. Nevertheless, Jenny called out a greeting, but Marie appeared not to have heard her. She called again, and this time her friend stirred and shook her head, as if she had just been pulled from some deep trance.
It's a folk
Marie
tale version?
apologised,
Huh.
saying she must have been miles away, but this was all she said, before she slipped back into her reverie.
Interesting.
Any attempts at idle chit-chat turned out to be in vain, as Jenny quickly realised that her friend was far too preoccupied for conversation. So instead, she proceeded to hang out her washing, but every now and then, she glanced over the fence at Marie, who continued to sit there in silence, frowning at the ground. Something was indeed troubling her.
High as a kookaburra
Before heading indoors,
in a tree.
Jenny stopped and considered her neighbour for a moment, then asked if everything was okay.
Fuck.
"I'm fine,"
It's
came the
Sunday.
reply, but the thickness of Marie's voice as she spoke suggested otherwise. Needless to say, Jenny was not convinced, and decided to push the boundaries of their newly formed friendship by probing what was on her mind. It took a little persuasion, but after a minute or two of gentle encouragement, Marie's shoulders finally drooped in resignation, and she let out a soft but audible sigh. "You won't believe me, but then Roger didn't either, so what the hell?" Somewhat apprehensively, she began to relate what happened the night before. She told Jenny that whilst on her run the previous evening, she had been out a couple of miles west of Spring Gully as the sun was just touching upon the horizon, when she looked out across a wide open field to see 3 objects hovering close to the ground, about 300 metres away from where she was.
Uh-oh.
She had stopped dead, mouth agape, just watching as they floated, still and silent. They stayed there for about 2 or 3 minutes, before moving off slowly, disappearing over the tree line at the other side of the field. Marie went on to say
Time to
that
stop
they were not
running.
like any aircraft she had ever seen before. They were each about 50 feet wide, metallic and circular in shape, and they didn't make any sound whatsoever, even as they moved. Even though she expressed that she didn't believe in aliens, she firmly believed that what she saw was not of this world. There was just something unnatural and ominous about the way they behaved, which had deeply affected her.
It sounds like it's more
Jenny did
than
not
just
doubt her friend's
seeing
story.
it, though, right? Like she's
Not only was she
disturbed by it.
open-minded about the possibility of aliens and UFOs, having seen some strange things as a child, Marie had seemed sincere and genuinely disturbed by her experience. As a result, she held off running for a while afterwards, and it would be a couple of weeks before she worked up the courage to head back out that way. But gradually, things did return to normal. Marie's husband, Roger, on the other hand, didn't believe her, but that mattered little to her. Their relationship was strong enough for them to be open and honest with one another, and in any case, she didn't need other people to believe her. She knew what she had seen. Her only hope was that she would never see them again, and for a while at least, that much was true.
If you saw something like that, would you just like
Then, at around
leave, or would you
9:30
be like, all right, I'm
p.m.
gonna go check out those
on the
orbs?
21st of October, Jenny and Abigail were sat on the sofa
Like,
watching
take a
TV
picture of it or something?
when
I
they
don't
heard a
know.
knock at the door. It was Marie. She was bent forwards and gasping for air.
Like,
Her
I was
husband
pissed.
Roger was stood behind her, with a disapproving look on his face, and when Jenny asked them what was wrong, he apologised for bothering them so late, and then said in a rather dismissive tone that his wife had been hallucinating again.
Uh-oh.
Breathlessly, Marie told him to shut up, then turned to Jenny
Oh,
and
you
said
shut your mouth.
they were there again. It seemed the objects had returned. According to Marie, she had been running next to the same field where she had seen them the first time, when they suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Quite literally, 1 minute there was nothing there, the next, a movement in the periphery of her vision made her look to her right, and that's when she saw them again, hovering low to the ground
Yeah,
over
Roger
the
is
field
a very
and
Australian
moving
name.
slowly towards her. Again she stopped dead in her tracks, and was at first too stunned to move, but eventually, panic got the better of her, and she ran to a nearby thicket of trees, dived into the brush, and ducked out of sight. The objects continued to move in her direction, but as they reached the trees, they passed directly over her head and disappeared from view. She waited for at least an hour before leaving the small wood. Once she was sure
Greg.
the coast was clear, she ran, and she didn't stop running until she reached the front door of her house, doubled over in agony and completely out of breath. At first, Roger had been concerned, but as soon as Marie had mentioned the UFOs, he had scoffed. They had gotten into an argument
Oh,
over
the
his refusal to believe
UFOs,
her,
Marie?
an argument which was now continuing on Jenny and Abigail's porch, much to the couple's embarrassment. They didn't know whether to intervene or let the two of them have it out right there on their doorstep.
Yeah, at least she didn't puke at the other
Maybe it was
the
just
other
the
pussy.
adrenaline, but Jenny noticed that Marie didn't appear at
Hearing
all
voices
frightened
in the
by
woods.
this second encounter, even though it was easily more disturbing than the first. If anything, she seemed emboldened by it and declared that she was going back there the next evening. She challenged her husband to join her, which he wholeheartedly rejected, saying he was not prepared to indulge this nonsense any further, and refused to entertain the idea of UFOs. With that, he apologised to his neighbours once more, then walked off the porch and went back indoors. Instead, Jenny offered to go along with Marie the next evening, whilst Abigail, who was pushing her mid-50s and didn't relish the idea of a run, declined, chuckling to
Marie.
herself as no doubt Roger had, at the prospect of space invaders. And so, on the evening of the 22nd of October, Jenny left Abigail at home and headed out with her neighbour up to the field where she had seen the strange objects. It was about 8 miles out of town, and Marie had brought her phone along in the hopes of taking some pictures, but it was all to no avail. The UFOs did not appear.
Janae!
They did not appear the evening after either, or the evening after that, and after 5 days, Jenny, who had gone with Marie every night since, decided to throw in the towel.
Yeah.
Although she believed her neighbour was telling the truth about what she had seen, her girlfriend was beginning to feel a little neglected, and had asked her to stop spending so much time with their neighbour.
I would be kind of pissed
Marie
too.
understood, of course,
Like, what are you doing?
but was determined to prove her husband wrong, and continued to run out to the field every night afterwards. It was a course of action that would end in tragedy. In the early morning hours of the 30th of October, 1:13 a.m. as Jenny precisely recalled,
Roger?
she and Abigail were awoken by a loud thumping on the front door. It was Roger, and he looked utterly distressed. "Is Marie here?" he had asked. Jenny shook her head, saying that she wasn't, and come to think of it, neither she nor Abigail had seen her all evening. Roger told them that she had gone out for her usual run at 6 p.m, but she had not returned, and that he didn't know where she was. He had waited up until just after 11 p.m, believing she must have dropped in to see a friend on her way back, but he had fell asleep on the sofa.
You're gonna fall asleep.
When he awoke again just after 1 a.m, and realised that she hadn't returned, he panicked.
Missing wife.
At length, he said that he was going to drive the roads Marie had been running, and as he wasn't sure of the exact route she would have taken, he asked Jenny if she would go along with him. Even though it was late, both she and Abigail agreed to help. It took them about an hour to reach the field where Marie previously said she had seen the objects, mostly because Roger had been driving at walking
A
speed,
long day of
calling out
fighting
her
kangaroos.
name and shining his torch into the fields and hedgerows. There was no sign of her
I heard about
whatsoever. As it was getting on for 4 a.m, they had to abandon the search.
Yeah, well,
and drove
maybe if
back
he
to
didn't put so
town,
much pressure on her
hoping
to
against
prove
hope
aliens
that
existed.
they would find Marie at home safe and
She wouldn't
sound.
be out there so often.
But as they pulled up on the drive, they could see that the house was still dark and empty, just as they had left it. No one was in. Although Jenny tried to reassure Roger that there was probably some perfectly reasonable explanation as to why Marie had not come home, he stayed up all night worrying, and the next day, Jenny and Abigail awoke to find a police car sitting outside their neighbour's house. Marie had still not returned, and by 8 p.m. that evening, a search was being coordinated, comprising local police and volunteers from the town. This eventually grew into a statewide search, involving hundreds of state police officers, helicopters and sniffer dogs. Signs were attached to lampposts and telephone poles in Watervale and in surrounding
Look at that
neighbourhoods,
one cop on the left, he's
and local
sketchy.
news put out bulletins asking anyone for information on
knows more
Marie's
than he's
whereabouts,
saying.
but things remained eerily quiet. The search parties found nothing. The helicopters and sniffer dogs found nothing. And although a few calls did come in from people who thought they saw Marie,
The cool guy.
these turned out to be cases of mistaken identity. Then, on the 11th of November, police located a pair of running shoes, with the socks still inside them, sitting casually behind a hedgerow at the side of the road.
That's a little sketchy.
They were found in such a fashion that suggested the person wearing them had simply been pulled right out of their shoes. The laces were still tied.
I found
and the
shoes
socks
like
were
that
pushed
one time.
inside them,
It's bizarre.
as if worn by an invisible pair of feet. Both Roger and Jenny identified them as Marie's, and were shocked to hear that they were located not too far from the field where she had first seen the strange objects.
Yeah, that's not good.
The search was formally called off on the 31st of November 2016. No trace of Marie Gillingham was ever found, and she has not been seen or heard from since.
It's weird how that happens a lot.
Her disappearance hit Watervale like a slap in
yeah,
the
we
face.
couldn't find anything, and then they find
She was well known in the
articles
town,
of clothing,
and popular
like,
amongst other
super
residents.
clean nearby. It's like, how did
They
no
all
one
said
find
it would
that?
have been highly unusual for her to just up and leave without so much as a goodbye. All
Looks
of her
kinda
belongings
spooky in
remained
that
at home,
in-person photo.
and still do to this day. She left for her run with only the clothes on her back and her mobile phone, which was also never found, and telephone records indicate no outgoing activity in the form of texts or calls since she vanished. Earlier attempts to triangulate her location using her phone
What do you think,
also
aliens or
yielded
not?
nothing. Taking all of this into consideration, Marie just didn't
Or just
have the
murdered.
means to run away.
Or both.
She didn't work and had little money of her own, and relied heavily on her husband's income. Roger himself was
Aussie
questioned over
Bigfoot?
what kind
It's
of
called the
relationship
Yahweh.
he shared with his wife. Although they argued just like any other couple, they were still very much in love and had a strong marriage. He was ruled out as a suspect fairly early on, due to lack of any evidence or a motive suggesting he had been involved in her disappearance, and the fact that other people attested to his upstanding character and gentle nature. The general consensus in the town is that Marie was kidnapped whilst on her run, and possibly raped and murdered. And although police have not publicly stated this to be the case, it is by most accounts what they suspect. There is no evidence to suggest foul play, however. No signs of a struggle were found.
fucking
No traces of blood
someone
or cadaver
did
odours were
something.
picked up by the dogs, and there were no suspect
Where
tyre
is
tracks
this lady?
suggesting a vehicle had been in the area, other than Roger's, of course, when he, Jenny and Abigail went to search for her.
Or did Roger do it?
The investigation is still ongoing, and many believe that only time will tell. Jenny, on the other hand, believes differently. She believes that no matter how much time passes, Marie, or what possibly remains of her, will never be found.
Listen, Doug
She has
Funny.
no doubt that her neighbour
I'm gonna
was
kill
abducted,
Patty Mayonnaise.
but the question on her
and you'll
mind
never see her
is not
again.
by who.
Well, gee,
but by
Roger, why
what?
would you do that?
She still lives in Watervale with her girlfriend.
Listen,
Abigail's
Funny.
father passed away in May 2017, and they now have no reason to stay. And yet something is keeping her there. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's that she feels duty-bound to stay and support Roger in his moment of need. Or maybe she just misses her friend. She did not realise how close she and Marie had become until after she was gone. And there is not an evening that goes by where she does not step out onto the porch before retiring to bed and looks across to her neighbour's house, hoping to see that familiar, smiling face looking back at her.
Yeah, usually it's someone for the health insurance. Life insurance, rather. Yeah, I love this channel. It's called Bedtime Stories. I would recommend it. They do a great job. Here, I'll link it in chat. Check them out. They're good. And that does conclude the YouTube video portion of our stream for the night, because I want to finish up American Horror Story.